All right, everybody, welcome back to our second act virtual classes. We're happy to have you all here with us today. Today, we are going to be talking about the VA Caregiver Support Program, and we are super excited to talk about that. But before we get started, we do have a few things to talk about. First is we have our new health educator with us. Her name is Kelly Corner. She comes all the way from Michigan. But we'll forgive her for that. But we're excited to have her and all of her new things she's going to bring to the table. So definitely welcome her if you get to meet her in person at one of our in-person classes. Also, make sure to sign up for June classes. We still have availability in all of our classes. So if you want to sign up, please do so. We do have in-person classes back. We do, however, ask that you still do wear masks at the in-person classes, but we are excited to get to see you guys in person. Also, during the presentation, we encourage you to ask as many questions as you like. There is a box below this presentation that you can type your questions in, and we'll get those asked at the end of the presentation for you, so please do that. I think those are all of the updates I really have for you guys. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Tim Corzine. He is with the VA over in Marion, and he is a coordinator for the Caregiver Support Program. And he is going to tell us a little about his program and how it can help you. So I will hand it over to you, Tim.
All right. Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tim Corzine, and I'm a social worker and caregiver support coordinator with the Marion VA. I've been with the VA for about 8 years and absolutely love my job. So I work in the Caregiver Support Program, as was previously mentioned, and so I'm going to talk to you today about what our programs offer and the services that we provide. And these are specific for veterans and their caregivers that are enrolled in our healthcare system. So let me share my screen here. All right, so our mission statement is to promote the health and well-being of family caregivers who care for our nation's veterans through education, resources, support, and services. There's 4 pillars of that come with our particular program. We have one pillar called inclusive care, which is a training that we do to providers, just kind of educating them on how important caregivers are. We also provide education and training to both caregivers and stakeholders in the community, trusted partnerships, and service excellence. We have 2 programs within our caregiver support program, and they're very unique in what we do. It's different than what you might think of in regards to healthcare, because usually in healthcare you have a patient, in which we do, which is the veteran, but we also extend that care to the caregivers. So one of the programs is called the Program of General Caregiver Support Services, or PGCSS, lots of acronyms with the VA. And then the other program is called the Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers, or PCAFC. And then I'll explain each one individually. So the general program, or PGCSS, is support services for enrolled veterans of all eras, and it doesn't require an application. This program provides support, education, and resources to general caregivers. And a general caregiver, it is defined as a person who is providing personal care services to a veteran, and that veteran either has an ADL need, an activity of daily living need, at least one or more, or that veteran has a need for supervision protection based on symptoms of neurological care or impairment. That's really the only criteria for that particular program. Once enrolled, services that are included in that is assistance with navigating VA services, because that can be quite difficult. We also provide education, training, and support through different modalities. We have a Building Better Caregivers training. We have a support line. We have an anti-text service, which our caregivers just will get a random text message to remind them to, maybe just breathe that day. It's usually some sort of self-care reminder. We also can provide counseling as well. So the Building Better Caregivers, that particular service is a 6-week online class for caregivers. It's sort of like a workshop. It's a closed group. I have heard a lot of good feedback from that group. A lot of caregivers enjoy it because it gives them an opportunity to meet with other caregivers who might be experiencing similar situations. We also do a caregiver support line where we respond to calls from caregivers in the community, and we can offer supportive counseling if needed. Let's see here. We also have a caregiver support line, which is toll free, and these are educational calls. They can listen in if they want. There's certain topics that we provide, and it's usually related to self-care. Okay. The REACH program is delivered in 4 one-hour core sessions with the option of additional sessions if needed. Telephone support is delivered in 6 one-hour group sessions. Support skills building through problem solving, stress reduction, and positive thinking and mood management. It also specializes in curriculum available for caregivers, specifically with that are caring for veterans with ALS, dementia, MS, PTSD, and spinal cord injury, which is kind of awesome that they provide that specific training. The caregiver self-care courses are offered by trained facilitators from the VA Memphis Caregiver Center, and they are provided in person with caregivers at our local facilities. Those particular courses are about 3 hours long, but topics that they include are utilizing technology, because that can be a challenge, especially nowadays in the medical field. Technology just keeps growing rapidly, and as our older generation, it's a little bit more difficult for them. So we do provide some education on that. Problem solving and communication, stress management, and taking care of yourself and taking care of your emotional health. The peer support mentoring, we link caregivers with other caregivers if they would like, especially ones that maybe have a lot of experience in being a caregiver and would like to serve as a mentor. Caregivers of all era are eligible to participate in the peer support mentoring program if they choose to. Right, so some helpful links is listed here. All right, the next program I'm going to talk about, I went over the general program. The next program is called the Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers, or the PCAFC. And this offers more enhanced support services. This particular program was updated just last October to include veterans that served on or prior to May 7th, 1975. But the regulations, they went into effect last October, And so it's going to expand again. I believe in the year 2022, they're going to open the program to all veterans of all eras. So there won't be this donut hole for veterans who are falling in this and aren't qualifying right now. They've updated their program eligibility. So veterans for this particular program, there's a lot of eligibility criteria, and it does come with an application, and they give us 90 days to process the application just because there's so much involved in the determination to see if a veteran qualifies. They are eligible if they've incurred or aggravated a serious injury in the line of duty that gave them a 70% or greater service connection rating. And if you don't know what that means, not all veterans have a service connection. In fact, most probably don't. But there are lots of veterans who have acquired an injury while in the line of duty. And that means that that injury can be something physical, it can be something mental, maybe a loss of an arm, or maybe PTSD. But then they're given a connection rating based on their disability. And so that rating can be 10%, it could be 100%. So for this particular program, only veterans who are 70% service connected or greater are eligible. And then this talks about what the serious injury means. And then the caveat to that is that's service connection rendered them to where they are in need of personal care services. So basically to where they need a caregiver. So what does it mean to be in need of personal care services? We get this a lot where folks will apply to our program and the caregiver will say, well, I drive my husband to his appointments, or I remind him to take his medications. And so, that's great. And he probably definitely needs you to do that. Unfortunately, if that is his only needs, it doesn't rise to the level for this particular program. So the definition is a veteran requires in-person personal care services from another person, and without such personal care services, alternative in-person caregiving arrangements would be required to support the eligible veteran's safety. So I kind of look at it, I kind of tell folks, if you're on the verge of going into a nursing home and the only reason why you're not is because your caregiver is doing everything for you at home, then they're more than likely going to qualify for this program. And so the baseline requirements are an inability to perform an activity of daily living, an ADL, which those are bathing, grooming, toileting, dressing. So if a veteran has need in one or more of those, and it's a daily need, then they would fit that category. Or they have a need for supervision, protection, or instruction. Veterans will be eligible if they require personal care services every time they complete one or more of the same ADLs. So if the caregiver is only having to, bathe the veteran once every, couple of weeks because the rest of the time he's able to do that, then that does not qualify. It has to be consistent care. An inability to perform an ADL. I jumped ahead of myself. I didn't realize that this was on here. So what does it mean for an activity of daily living? So an inability to dress, an inability to bathe, an inability to groom, frequent need of adjustment to any specific prosthetic or orthopedic appliance that by reason of the disability cannot be done without assistance. An inability to toilet or attend to toileting without assistance, inability to feed oneself due to loss of coordination of upper extremities, or difficulty with mobility. a veteran's need for supervision, protection, or instruction would be based on a functional impairment that directly impacts the veteran's ability to maintain his or her personal safety on a daily basis. So basically, it's, you've got the veteran who has a cognitive issue and, needs 24-hour supervision because, he or she may walk out the door and forget where they are at and, get lost. Just an example. So some of the enhanced services, the general program that I mentioned first, and all of those services, folks who are enrolled in the comprehensive program also get all the services that are offered through the general program. Probably the biggest piece, and the reason why most folks apply to the comprehensive program is because if approved, the caregiver receives a monthly stipend. And then that money is used to acknowledge the care that the caregiver is providing, and then to also just help offset the financial costs it takes to care for someone at home, because it can be very expensive and very time consuming. The financial stipend, that amount is determined at a national level. And there's only 2 levels that a veteran can be approved for. There's a level 1 and a level 2, and that's based on their level of care. Other services is we do wellness contacts. So when enrolled in the comprehensive program, our caregivers are contacted at least every quarter, kind of doing a checkup and checking in to see how things are going. They do have to comply with those wellness contacts. And then we also do an annual in-home assessment too. Another benefit to the program is if a caregiver does not have insurance or loses their insurance, they can access the CHAMP VA healthcare insurance. We also offer mental health services to approved caregivers, which I think is another wonderful thing that the VA offers, because there again, even though the veteran is quote unquote considered our patient, we consider the caregiver part of their treatment plan. So we offer mental health services needed because we recognize that a mentally stable caregiver is going to also help that veteran. We provide respite care, and then there's also travel reimbursement for VA approved medical appointments as well. So from caring comes courage. If we can empower and support the caregiver, we not only improve the life of the caregiver, but also the life of the veteran. And then this is just the information on how to contact us. Our direct department number is the 618-997-7676, and we can be reached with that number. And there's also the National Caregiver Support Line. And that website, caregiver.va.gov, is a wonderful website. It's very user-friendly. And it even has, if you're curious to know whether or not you qualify for one or both of our caregiver programs, you can actually go to this website and answer some just basic questions, and then it'll tell you whether or not you may qualify, and yeah, maybe you should apply or not. But that is all the information that I have for you.
All right, great. That's a lot of great information. I do have some questions for you. My first question is, so this person has a husband that is 100% disabled and is on unemployability with the VA, and she is currently the caregiver, driver, and supporter. Would she be eligible, or how do you go about finding out?
Yeah, so one of the things that I recommend is if you're already connected, if the veteran is already connected with a primary care doctor through the VA, to contact the social worker with their primary care doctor, or you can call the department number and even ask to speak to me, and I can provide that information as well.
Okay, great. And then how long does it usually take after you apply to know if you're like accepted or not, or
Yeah,
if you're not accepted for one, does it suggest the other, those kind of things?
great question. So for the general program, since there's no application or no application process, that goes very quickly. For the comprehensive piece, because there's several assessments involved to determine a veteran's eligibility, there's even caregiver training involved. That can take up to 90 days to finish that application. We initially, when the program expanded, we weren't prepared for the influx of applications. So there was a longer delay in processing them, but we have finally been able to staff appropriately and catch up with the applications. So now we're seeing things move at a much faster pace.
Awesome. Um, are most of the cases, they're by case basis, is that correct?
Yes. Yes, each case is looked at differently. Well, not differently. The same standards apply to each case, but each case is reviewed. There's specific assessments that take place and occur, and we even do a home assessment as one of the final steps in the application process.
Great. And then how long has this program been around here in Marion, as well as just uh, nationwide?
Oh,
I could talk.
wasn't prepared for that one, but I've been with the program for a little over a year. Um, I know that the comprehensive piece, the expansion just occurred last October, but the caregiver support program, both programs have been around for several years. I know that, but as far as the time, I don't know.
Okay, great. And then if someone is thinking about trying to apply for either of these programs, kind of what is the best way to start? I know you kind of mentioned your primary care. Does it have to be a VA primary care doctor, or can it be another one?
Yeah,
Um,
great question. They do have to at least be enrolled in the VA. So if they're not enrolled in the VA, they need to start there and get assigned a primary care doctor. As far as if they want to apply for the comprehensive, the application can either be mailed to them or it can be completed online. And they can certainly, they can call our department and we can get that application in their hands pretty quickly.
Awesome. So I know you mentioned some stuff about some evaluations and stuff like that. Where would, once they get through that first initial process, where are they going to do those evaluations? Is it at home? Are they going to a facility? Those kind of
Yeah,
things.
great. No, great question. So just in specific to the comprehensive program, the one that has the application, they do a phone assessment, which can take up to an hour to 2 hours. And those are questions for the veteran and questions for the caregiver. And then after that, we do what's called a veteran functional assessment. And then that is done either by the veteran presenting to one of our local clinics, or we are able to do that. We're offering that via video. But there has to be some sort of eyeball visual with that assessment. And then after that, their case gets reviewed by what's called a centralized eligibility and appeals team. And they're the ones that make the decision whether or not a veteran qualifies for the program. So then once they make the determination, if they say the veteran is denied, then that's pretty much where their case ends, and they're sent a letter and a phone call, and more than likely enrolled in the general program because they probably meet criteria for that. If they're approved, then they just move on. They're not approved completely. They're just approved to move forward with the next steps. And then the next step in that involves a caregiver training. And then that's done in the comfort of their own home, either through electronically, they can complete it, or through a workbook that's mailed to them. And then after that, an in-home assessment is done, and where our nurse actually goes to their home and completes an in-home assessment. And then it goes back to a final review by the centralized eligibility appeals team. So
Awesome.
that's why it could take up to 90 days.
90 days. Yeah, there's a lot going on there for sure. Another question is, so if you do apply for the program, you get denied, how long do you have to wait till you can apply again, or what needs to change for you to maybe have a better eligibility of a program?
Sure. Great question. So you can appeal. So if someone is denied, they have the right to appeal that decision. And we've seen cases that they've the appeal was in their favor. So if they're denied and they lose the appeal or choose not to appeal because they've just decided, you know what, I don't qualify at this time, they can apply. There's no limit to how many times they can reapply. And I always just folks, you know, if you feel like there's been a change in your level of care, where you think you might qualify now, you know, certainly reach out to us, because we can also do assessments to determine, you know, we can do some OT, we can do a OT assessment to see where they're at, or even a psychological assessment to help also determine their need.
Awesome, great. Those are all the questions I really have. Tracy or Kelly, did you guys have any questions?
I was just going to ask Tim, for those that don't qualify and you have all these other resources, what is your message to all those folks who are out there doing that tough work sometimes of caring for a loved one?
And that don't qualify. Yeah, it's tough. The general program, I think that's one of the reasons why that most of the resources and material is in that particular program and doesn't have the criteria. But I would recommend them reaching out to their local VA clinic, or again, calling our department to see if they can get into our general program, because again, we just hear so many good things from our caregivers that go through the workshops and the trainings, and you don't, in that program, the criteria is so low. I would just recommend them trying to get into that.
Great. So before I leave, we will be sending out a survey following this. It will have the recording of this class, as well as the PowerPoint and contact information if you guys would like more information about either of the programs. I think those are all the questions we really have for you today, Tim. We really do appreciate you being with us and kind of sharing what you get to do, and definitely for some people to look into this support program, because it is very important.
Great, thanks
But
for having me. I appreciate it.
yeah, do you have any other last words to share with anybody out there?
No, I don't. Just know that if you are, you know, caring for someone, and it's a bigger deal than what people realize. And just pat yourself on the back. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yes, I think that's so important. Is don't be afraid to ask for help. There's always someone out there to help you for sure. And this is just one of those resources. And again, we appreciate you being with us today, Tim. And we hope everybody has a wonderful weekend and a great